escalation in President Trump's trade war with Mexico and Canada. A new order from the White House effectively doubling tariffs on steel and aluminum imports to a whopping 50%.
What if I told you the next major power outage in the US won't be caused by a storm, a cyber attack, or a natural disaster, but by Canada? And it's already begun. It started with a spark. Then it surged through power lines and hit the US grid like a lightning bolt. Canada has just pulled off one of the most unexpected, strategic, and potentially catastrophic economic counterattacks in its modern history. And it didn't involve missiles, sanctions, or trade bans. It came through your wall socket. In a stunning move that caught everyone from Michigan to New York completely off guard, Ontario slapped a 25% surcharge on electricity exported to the US. Overnight, utility bills spiked, regulators scrambled, and for millions of Americans, the lights just got more expensive to keep on. But here's the real jolt. Ontario's Premier Doug Ford didn't just raise prices. He threatened to cut the power completely. That's not posturing. That's a threat to the grid itself. Over 1 million American homes and businesses rely on Canadian electricity, and there's no easy substitute. No fast fix. When Ford said, "You want to play games with tariffs? We'll show you what real leverage looks like," the US took notice. Because this isn't just one province going rogue. Manitoba followed suit, quietly allowing 2 major export contracts, over 500 megawatts of hydropower, to expire in April. Officially, they said it's to bring energy back home. Unofficially, it's a strategic play. They're holding the grid hostage, and Quebec might be next in line. This has gone beyond trade spats. This is about grid dominance. When politics electrifies infrastructure, everyone gets burned. In states like New York and Minnesota, emergency protocols are already in the works. Backup plans include firing up dirty oil plants and importing expensive liquefied natural gas. Grid managers are on edge, because even a 5 to 10% disruption in imported power, the current share from Canada's Manitoba could be the difference between a stable summer and rolling blackouts. But the question is, how did it come to this? Let's rewind. This wasn't spontaneous. It was a fuse lit months ago in Washington. On March 4th, President Donald Trump announced sweeping 25% tariffs on Canadian and Mexican imports, metals, electronics, even food. Critical stuff that keeps North America's economy humming. Canada fired back fast, $30 billion in counter tariffs. But then, it went for something deeper. Power. Then came March 12th. The US doubled down, raising Canadian steel and aluminum tariffs to 50%. That's when Ontario hit back with its electricity surcharge. And behind the scenes, panic. US energy officials weren't just upset, they were terrified. Because they know, if Canada flips the switch off, major cities go dark. Prime Minister Mark Carney, who replaced Justin Trudeau this spring, is playing hardball. On one hand, he's negotiating. On the other, he's preparing scorched earth retaliations if talks fail. Within days of the US tariff hike, Canada slammed back with nearly 30 billion Canadian dollars in new trade restrictions. Simultaneously, they dragged the US before the World Trade Organization and invoked clauses in the USMCA. This isn't a disagreement. It's a full-blown diplomatic, legal, and industrial war. Meanwhile, Mexico is trying to walk a tightrope. President Claudia Sheinbaum publicly blasted Trump's tariffs, especially the brutal 50% duty on Mexican steel, but chose negotiation over retaliation. Quietly, her administration is working on a quota deal. Let in a fixed amount of Mexican steel tariff-free, slap the rest with full penalties. It's not ideal, it's not fair, but it's survival. Still, even Mexico is drawing a line. Sheinbaum has warned if talks collapse, Mexico will retaliate. And fast. Her government is drafting its own trade and legal responses. And they're not holding back this time. 3 countries, 1 continent, and a trade war that's now disrupting everything, from your phone charger to your grocery bill to the electricity powering this very video. And this is just the beginning. Ontario's electricity surcharge wasn't just a jab, it was a warning shot. And the message landed. US utilities, especially in New York and New England, are now bracing for long-term damage. Ontario supplies nearly 10% of New York's electricity. Quebec powers close to 9% of New England's needs. These aren't nice-to-have energy imports. They're lifelines, especially during heat waves, deep freezes, or grid emergencies. If those lines go dark, the fallback options are grim. Aging oil-fired plants are expensive, dirty, and unreliable. Importing liquefied natural gas costs significantly more, and even then, it's not guaranteed to arrive on time. And as summer demand surges, grid managers warn of potential rolling blackouts, forced outages, and economic losses in the billions. And it's not just talk. Emergency drills are being conducted. Contingency plans are being drawn up. Minnesota, which normally depends less on Canadian electricity, is preparing for worst-case scenarios. Because when one province shuts off the switch, others may follow. But this isn't only about electricity anymore. It's about a total realignment of North America's energy map. In April, for the first time in history, Canada shipped more crude oil to China than to the United States. Let that sink in. Why? Ottawa is moving fast to diversify, because trust in Washington is eroding fast. Canadian labor unions are pushing for a full-scale energy divorce, not just electricity, but oil, gas, and critical minerals. Their message is clear. If the US wants to play hardball, let them see what it's like to go without the fuel that keeps their economy alive. British Columbia is even taking a different route, targeting US trucks. A new fee is being planned for American commercial vehicles traveling through the province on the way to Alaska. Translation, they're choking a supply artery to a red state stronghold. It's smart, it's strategic, and it's sending shivers through Washington. But here's the twist. British Columbia is currently a net importer of electricity due to severe droughts. They're vulnerable too. They may not be able to cut exports just yet, but if this economic war spreads, they might not have a choice. And it will spread, because the tariffs aren't stopping. The US isn't just taxing metals or electricity, it's hitting everything, from avocados to iPhones. Trump's administration has reclassified a range of electronics from Mexico and China, triggering steep new import duties. That's why companies like Target and Best Buy have already warned consumers prices are going up. Grocery stores, same story. Mexican avocados now come with an import tax, and shoppers are feeling it. Economists estimate that these tariffs will cost the average American household nearly $1,000 more per year. And that's a conservative estimate. The financial markets are reacting. The S&P 500 dipped into correction territory in April. Consumer confidence is cratering, hitting levels not seen since the inflation panic of 2022. And now, the Congressional Budget Office projects a 2.8% drop in US GDP for Q1 alone. Let that number sink in. That's recession territory. North America's auto industry is already bleeding. Factories are slowing production, material costs are soaring, and the layoffs? They're no longer a distant threat. They're already happening. In Canada, manufacturers are calling for emergency subsidies. Mexico's preparing an economic stabilization plan. In the US, workers are waiting, fearing they're next in line. But none of that compares to the final looming threat, infrastructure collapse. Because electricity is no longer just a commodity, it's a weapon. And when your power supply is leveraged in a geopolitical game, the consequences are no longer just economic. They're structural. Canada's power exports, especially hydroelectricity, form the invisible spine of the northeastern US grid. If those connections snap, the system doesn't just falter, but it collapses. And if this war continues, it won't matter how we got here. It won't matter who imposed what tariff or when. What will matter is this: the lights are out. Not because of enemies, not because of hackers, but because neighbors cut the cord. This was never just about trade, it was about trust. And now that trust has been broken, possibly beyond repair. If you found this breakdown eye-opening, make sure to like, comment, and hit that subscribe button. The next moves in this power struggle are coming fast, and Global Pulse will be here to track every one of them. Stay informed, stay connected, and stay prepared.